Ladies, have you been wanting to make a change, but you don't feel ready? Here's the truth. Readiness is a lie. The model of confidence for women is backward, and we need to flip it. I'm Cara Poppet, author of a new book, Big Freaking Change. After coaching thousands of women, I discovered action gives us confidence, not the other way around. If we wait to feel ready, we'll wait forever. So if you're ready to get unstuck and step into the life you've always dreamed about, visit bigfreakingchange.com right now and order your copy. Welcome to the Big Freaking Change podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of those who took bold action, embraced uncertainty, and transformed their lives without ever feeling ready. I'm your host, Cara Poppet, author of The Big Freaking Change and the creator of the Get Unstuck Cycle of Change model. Each week, we'll sit down with remarkable individuals who have taken bold steps in their lives, personally and professionally, to make meaningful change. Whether you're seeking a career shift, personal growth, or a boost in confidence, our goal is to inspire you to stop waiting and start taking action. Welcome, everyone, to Big Freaking Change. I'm your host, Cara Poppet, and I'm delighted to be here today with a dear friend, a wise soul, and an intuitive being, Shannon Lee. Thank you, Shannon, for coming to our show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes. Shannon, I want everyone to know the brilliance you have. So I'm going to actually read your bio so our listeners know who they are listening to today. So a little biography about our friend Shannon. From a very young age, Shannon Lee was aware of two fundamental truths. She thrived when she was helping others, and she possessed a unique perspective. Whether people viewed her as charming, eccentric, they naturally gravitated toward her when they needed information, encouragement, or advice. Shannon's interactions usually resulted in people feeling happier and seeing themselves and their situation in a new, more positive light. Today, Shannon is a personal development expert with more than 25 years of experience in helping people to increase their resiliency and joy. She is the founder of Inner Harmonies and the director of Self-Awareness Institute. Shannon passionately believes that life is to be fully embraced and wholeheartedly celebrated, not merely endured. She feels strongly that this philosophy also extends in our workplaces, which should ideally provide ample opportunity for us to expand and express our expertise, to stimulate our curiosity, to engage our sense of pride, to build community, and to be rewarded for our contributions. Shannon, so heart-centered. I love all this information about you and how you've come to be and how you show up in the world. Shannon, I'd love to start with you just talking about your big freaking change in life. Tell me about it and how did that happen for you?
I've had many big freaking changes in my life. Two are the most significant, and they're actually kind of linked. So back in 1991, I had moved to Oregon and was struggling to find permanent work. I was doing a lot of temp work. My brother woke me up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. He's the only person I know who actually physically greeted the newspaper delivery person. And he says, "Dude, there's this ad for teaching English in Japan. I think you should do it." And I thought, interesting. 2 months later, I was on a plane with a 2-year contract in hand, and I ended up staying there for 4 years. And that was an amazing, amazing experience for me. And that was one of those moments in life that happen to all of us if we're paying attention, where we're given a huge, unexpected opportunity. And we can either choose to lean into it or to run away. And I chose to lean into it. When I came back from Japan, I relocated to California and I moved in with my parents because my grandfather was terminal with cancer and he wanted to remain at home until the end. I wanted to spend time with him and support him and my parents. As a result of all of this, I ended up finding something called the Self-Awareness Weekend, which is a program that I now facilitate. And that actually led me to deciding to become an alchemical hypnotherapist. And that was the start of not only my personal growth journey, but also my professional career as a human development expert. So that was two big freaking changes that were linked. Had I not taken the chance and hopped on that plane to Japan, I wouldn't have been positioned in an area where I would have been connected with the Self-Awareness Weekend or the Alchemical Institute of Hypnosis, which is where I got my training.
I love the ripple effect of change, right? Like you did this, you listened to your intuition, you paid attention to the unexpected opportunity that came up. You're on the plane to Japan, you come back. My grandma used to always say this to me, that it's always in hindsight that we can connect the dots, right? Like certain
Right.
things just happen. And if we trust our intuition and pay attention, as you say, we can move forward with that. I'd love for you to share, because you have so much expertise in this. And I did a hypnotherapy session with you, and it was just brilliant. But I'd love for you to kind of explain what self awareness is.
Absolutely. That's a great question. A lot of people think that self awareness is a lot of, navel staring and meditation and stuff like that. It's really very simple. Self awareness is when you are aware of your thoughts and your feelings and how they're impacting your choices and your actions. When we don't understand what our emotions mean and what they're linking us to, it makes it very difficult for us to learn what it is that we want and need in order to be happy and more successful. And when we are not paying attention to all of those thoughts cycling through our head, they're likely to gravitate to worry, fear, and doubt and non-productive things that pull us away from our goals and dreams rather than take us closer.
It's interesting when I talk to people that are diving deep into their self-awareness. And myself included, it's almost like the more we know about ourselves, the more we realize we don't know enough, right? It's like we think we get to a certain point, we're like, wow, this is awareness, but you realize there's so much more you can learn about yourself. Shannon, I know you help people get unstuck, and I talk about stuck as an opportunity and alert indicating that there's something more or better for you. We don't have this feeling of being stuck unless there's something more for us, but we have to kind of go through usually some change and some challenges and embrace the fear before we can get unstuck. But you have a very unique approach to stuckness. I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. Feeling stuck is really more the call of our soul for something more and something better. And change is definitely the answer. When we can be really clear and have self awareness
Yes.
on where and why and how we're stuck, it really helps. So I
Yes.
have identified the 4 major areas of stuck spots. You ready?
I'm ready, sister.
Okay.
Give it to me.
I'll list them and then I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by them.
Great.
So we've got emotional triggers, limiting beliefs, ineffective strategies, and underdeveloped internal resources. Now, our emotional triggers happen when we have something happen to us in the past that we haven't fully processed. Maybe it's still haunting us, or maybe we never had the opportunity to really feel our feelings and move through them. And so a really quick example, and the best example I can give of this, is many times you'll see when people experience an emotion, it feels over the top and out of proportion to what's happening in the moment. And that's because that emotion is linked to all of the other times they felt that they didn't get to express and process and release. So for example, road rage. Have you ever found yourself or seen somebody driving down the road, somebody cuts in front of them, all of a sudden screaming, red in the face, waving with just one finger, right?
Yeah.
Just really exploding and blowing up. It's not just about what happened in the moment. In the moment, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Somebody just moved in front of you. They didn't hit you. They didn't,
Yes.
However, it brings up and it triggers all the times that you felt disrespected, that your turn was taken away from you, that somebody else was controlling you, that you weren't seen or heard or any of those things. And it wells up into this big explosion. So when we identify and begin to release our emotional triggers, we're more successful, we're happier, life goes a lot more smoothly.
I love that analogy about the road rage, because it is true. Someone can cut me off. Sometimes I'm like, oh, but usually I'm like, okay, buddy, you go for it. Like I just try to, shift my energy. But I love that it's always, you talked about being disrespected, feeling like you didn't have your control. I love this. Okay, keep going. I'm so
absolutely
intrigued.
Okay, so let's move on to limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are decisions that we make about the world, ourselves, everything that stick with us and last. And here's the kicker. Those limiting beliefs, the majority of them are created when we're very young.
Yes.
Like 2 or 3 years old, about the time that we're starting to realize that we are separate from mommy and daddy, we're our own individual, we're looking around the world and trying to understand it better. And so something happens and we go, oh, okay, that's a rule. That's how the world works. Okay, I'm going to pay attention to that. Now, the problem is we're making these decisions when we're way too young to really understand what's going on.
Yes.
So we're operating off of this set of beliefs that are outdated and are harming us rather than helping us. So for example, let's say that we overhear our mother and father talking about how money is going to be tight this month. And children always make it about themselves. So we start thinking to ourselves, oh gosh, I shouldn't be asking for lunch money. I'm causing problems for mommy and daddy because I'm asking for too much. Oh, maybe I'm being too much. All of a sudden you have this limiting belief about I'm too much or I can't ask for what I need. Decades later, that's still playing out in our lives, limiting and restricting us.
It's so profound. It's so simple the way you say it. It's like, yeah, of course. And limiting beliefs. In my book, I talk about updating our mindset and managing our mindset, because as we evolve, we have to continue to do the work. There's going to be new things, new experiences are going to trigger us, like you said, and then we're going to create new limiting beliefs and we have to continue to update it. Okay, what's next?
So the next one is ineffective strategies. These are all the fun things like procrastination.
Yes.
Right? These are the things that we do out of habit and programming that do not serve us in any shape or form. It's really interesting. I do a lot of inner child work in the work that I do. And it's so important to be aware of our inner child, because that's where a lot of our inner child holds all of our feelings. And they often are the ones that are hanging on to those limiting beliefs. If we think about it from our conscious adult mind, empowered adult mind.
Yes.
If we have a limiting belief that says something like, I don't deserve to have love, our powerful adult mind goes, no, wait a minute, that's not true. But it's not the part that's hearing that limiting belief and reacting to the limiting belief. It's our inner child who's very situationally focused and hears that limiting belief fire off in our head and goes, oh, you're right. And goes back to all the memories and all the feeling states of all the times that we felt unloved. So going back to our ineffective strategies, the reason I brought up the inner child is I gave the example of procrastination.
Yes.
I have found many times we're procrastinating because our inner child feels like they have to do whatever it is that needs to be done, and they don't want it. So, for example, if you find yourself needing to do your taxes and you're feeling resistant, you might notice, is that a little voice of an inner child going, don't want to, can't make me, no gonna. If you recognize that that's your inner child, you can simply say, oh, sweetie, you don't have to do this. This is big, boring adult stuff. You go play, and I, the adult, am going to do the taxes. And even that little mind shift will open up and help you.
Like the acknowledgement of like, okay, this is what's playing here.
Yep.
Hello, I'm an adult. Let's get this done.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last one.
Ooh, underdeveloped internal strategies. This is one of my favorites because it's really kind of intangible. Albert Einstein said, the only thing you need to decide is the universe a friendly place or an unfriendly place? And that space that you're sitting in is one of those underdeveloped internal resources. If you are in that space of it's an unfriendly universe, you need to be able to develop your internal trust of yourself and the world around you. You need to develop your confidence. You need to be open to experiences rather than running away and hiding from them.
Mm-hmm.
So just that sense of I'm okay is one of those internal resources that many people often have not yet claimed.
It's so great. So we have emotional triggers, limited beliefs, ineffective strategies, and underdeveloped resources. And if we tap into that, we can help ourselves get unstuck.
Absolutely.
And make the change. Shannon, I know you do a lot of hypnotherapy and it helps people with change. Can you share why and how that works?
Yes, excellent question. Thank you. Obviously, I love to talk about this stuff. The reason that hypnotherapy is so powerful is it allows us to bypass the conscious mind and get into the subconscious, which is where 98% of who we are, how we are, what we believe, all of that is really stored. Our dreams, everything is really stored. So a lot of people have seen like stage hypnosis or, like the Manchurian Candidate or stuff like that. They think, oh my gosh, you're going to make me quack like a duck.
Yes.
And I actually love getting this question because my response to that is, no, I will not make you quack like a duck. However, I would be more than happy to help you explore why you would want to.
Okay.
So hypnosis is actually a state of greater awareness because you have removed all of the distractions from the outer world and you're completely inward focused. Hypnosis allows us to actually rewire neural pathways. So when we take a limiting belief and we walk through it and we unravel it and we shift it, it's a permanent shift.
It's amazing. And when we're talking about the subconscious, like there's a lot of research that will say anywhere from 95 to 98% we're operating, and we have around 70,000 thoughts a day, and there's a very small amount that's actually conscious. So when someone goes through hypnotherapy with you, are you able, do you tap into their inner child, the limiting beliefs, when they come out of it? What is their self-awareness?
Great question. All of the above, basically.
Okay.
During a hypnotherapy session, we will connect with any internal resources we need. So the first internal resource that people are aware of is the inner child because it's gotten a lot of publicity over the years. But we all have different parts of ourselves. We all have an inner judge who sees things in black and white and right and wrong and has very rigid thinking.
Yes.
We all have an inner romantic who wants to see everything through rose-colored glasses. And can't we all just love each other and get along?
Yes.
Right? We all have the inner rebel that's like, heck with this, I'm out of here. Right?
Yeah.
Part of the challenge is we're not always aware of those different pieces and which one is talking. And so that's when, have you ever felt like you needed to make a really difficult decision or important decision, but yet you just couldn't land?
Yes.
And you were being pulled in different directions. It's kind of like internal tug of war.
Yes.
That's when those parts are in dissonance. That's when they're in conflict. And one of my favorite processes is going in and looking at an important question or a decision and making sure that we're getting all of the internal world aligned around it. Our subconscious is also like a huge filing cabinet. It stores everything we've ever experienced, heard, learned, tasted, touched, anything. And so when somebody comes to me and says, I have this pattern of always picking the wrong men, I just can't seem to break it. I seem to keep drawing in the same kind of person. We get to go back in to their subconscious through hypnotherapy and find what the limiting belief or the programming was that set them up for this. I once had a client who came to me and she was absolutely just at the end of her rope. She had been having bad relationship after bad relationship, and she had decided that was it. She was just not going to do relationship. She was just going to close the door on all of that. But as a last ditch effort, she came to me and we did, it was about 5 or 6 sessions, I think, and really got down to some of the root causes. There was some stuff from her childhood. There was some relationship programming that she learned from her parents that was not serving her. There were some limiting beliefs. There were quite a few things in there, and we cleared it out. And I got a call from her a couple of months after that, and she was elated. She was dating this new guy. He was wonderful. They'd been together for about a month, and she really wanted me to come and meet him for dinner. And I showed up for dinner, and they were just so darling, and she was so open. All the defensiveness, all the prickliness, all the stuff that she had had about relationships in the past just were not even a blip on her radar screen.
That's
and you could
so
see
beautiful.
that they were so connected, and it was just so great. But they were looking at me with kind of a strange look on their faces, and I'm like, okay, something's up. And partway through dinner, they stopped and they said, okay, Shannon, we're getting married and we want you to perform the ceremony.
Wow. So fulfilling.
Yeah. So it was just really lovely to be able to go from, that's it, I'm completely not even going to attempt, not going to dip a toe in the well of relationships ever again. to
Yes.
I have found my beloved and we're getting married.
Oh, that's beautiful. Shannon, so many people talk about inner child, right? Like
Mhm.
getting to the root of your inner child. How do you explain your inner child? And for people that are a little more resistant to it, what would you say to them?
Sure. So our inner child is that part of us that is still the little 4 or 5 or 6 year old within us.
Mm-hmm.
It's the part of us that is directly connected to our emotions and our physical needs. And if we are struggling with not being happy in life, with not feeling fulfilled, with not even knowing what our needs are,
Mm.
the only way to get to the source of all of that is to connect with your inner child.
So, how do you do that? Walk me through that process.
Yeah, well, there are lots of different ways. Of course, there are some wonderful books out there.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest way is to simply imagine. You could even get a picture of yourself when you were maybe 5 or 6 years old and look at that picture and talk to that little one. I actually have an audio that's a sweet 10-minute journey to connect with your inner child. It's a great website link. It is myinnerchild.rocks forward
Ooh.
slash audio.
Okay, I've got to check that out today, sister. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously doing a hypnotherapy session, coming to the self-awareness weekend with that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the two main goals of the self-awareness weekend is to help people to release all of their emotional baggage or as much as we can shovel out over the course of it and to connect with their inner child. And then the other piece of it is re-educating their ego mind, which is that part that's holding and repeating all of the limiting beliefs. So we take on the emotional triggers and the limiting beliefs as the main focus of the self-awareness weekend.
Well, that sounds so beautiful. I'm going to have to check that out.
Please do.
Yeah. Shannon, when we're talking about the ego mind, I love this question. I asked Elizabeth Gilbert in a session. I got to ask her a question, and I would love to ask you the same question. How do we know when we are acting from our calling, our intuition, or our ego?
That's a very good, juicy question and an important one.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that we focus on at the self-awareness weekend. The whole goal is to get you centered in your powerful adult,
Mm-hmm.
nurturing your inner child, and re-educating your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the resources that we give people is a handout because languaging is so important. And we actually have a handout that breaks down this is what your child is going to sound like versus your ego versus your adult. Basically, the ego is so focused on being special and separation and comparison and judgment that it has that kind of languaging to it. Whereas the child has that kind of needy, tugging on mama's shirt sleeve energy. And the adult is very invitational and at choice.
Mm.
So, for example, if you are making a request, your inner child might say, hey, do you want to go and do this with me? You want to go see a movie?
Mm-hmm.
The ego will be very dictatorial. I'm doing this. Want to come with me?
Mm.
Whereas the adult will be very invitational and say, hey, I'm going to do this. I'd love for you to join me. How does that sound to you? So languaging is a huge way to tell the difference. Also, the energy. If you're coming from your ego, you will feel very rigid. Very absolute worst thing that the ego will kill itself to not do or feel is to be wrong. The ego must be right. So if you find yourself holding on to getting in the last word, to proving your point, you're being stuck in ego.
That's so great. I would love for you to share when you know someone's in their brilliance and it's their calling. Because sometimes people will say to me, no, I've been doing this thing for so long. I'm getting lots of positive feedback. I think I should do it. I don't know if I should do it. And sometimes we have a disconnection within ourselves. And I even know for myself, I go through that a lot of like, is this my calling? Is this my path? Or is this my ego leading me? And I feel sometimes that, there's a, between your calling and having confidence, like maybe we can decipher that, when you follow your calling, you have this, I believe it's kind of like a magical energy that you lead with, right? Because your intuition, you have alignment, you're here to serve and to give, and it's more than yourself. And I would say that the ego is more centered on self than others. And so that's kind of how I differentiate it. But I believe that when you follow your calling, your confidence is always going to be stronger because it's like your path. You're following your path and you're figuring it out along the way. But I'd love for you to share your perspective on, the calling and confidence?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in what you said. There's some good juicy stuff in there, as always. I love how you phrase things and your perspective on things. So at the very beginning, you opened that up with, I feel like I should. Anytime we're shoulding, that's typically coming from our ego, because that's about judgment, about following the rules, about being right, about looking good. Swami Biyandananda says, our country is suffering from a severe case of autism. We ought to do this. We ought to do that. So if we feel like we should, it may still be our calling or our path. However, it's been colored with expectations of others, perhaps, right? Do we feel like we should do this because this is what our parents wanted us to do, or what we feel like society expects us to do, or what we feel like we need to do in order to be loved and accepted in the world? That's often underneath a lot of the shoulds.
Mm-hmm.
So don't should all over yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And how do you know when someone's in their confidence, when you're like, wow, that person's confident? Not, I find there's a fine line between people when we can come across arrogant, or it's a divine calling and a soft confidence, a calm confidence.
Absolutely. That calling and confidence is really more about flow than force.
Yeah.
Arrogance has that flavor of force, right? And what you're talking about has that flow.
Yeah.
When from inside of our bodies, when we are in the flow of our calling, it's like every cell in our body is jumping up and down and singing and dancing. We can feel it. We're energetic beings, and our body is a tuning fork. And when we're in alignment with our true path, when we're being fully authentic, when we're being fully expressed with all of our gifts and talents and abilities, we can feel it physically in our body. My good friend and mentor, Brigitte D'Amato, once said to me, and this has been one of my touchstones my whole career. She said to me, the work that we do is more about availability than ability. The ego focuses on ability. Am I doing this right? Am I looking good? Am I getting all the accolades? Do I have all the degrees?
Yes.
That's all about ability. Whereas with all of us, I don't care if you're an accountant, it's all about availability. Are we centered in our heart? Are we centered in service? Are we looking at the big picture rather than looking through blinders?
I just love that. I'm going to remember that.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. Sometimes when I speak on stages or I'm encouraging others to do it, I say, just go be a blessing, and it takes the pressure off yourself, right? When it's like, I'm here to serve, I'm here to give.
Absolutely.
And I'm open, I'm available, I'm fully expressed. I'm going to be in attunement. I'm going to be in alignment. How do you know when someone's in alignment? What do you notice from the work that you do?
They're no longer slamming on their brakes.
Oh, wow. They're just trusting and going with the flow.
When they're in alignment, to me, being in alignment means that you are fully centered in your adult. You are taking care of the needs of your inner child, and you are regulating and re-educating your ego. So you're able to be in this space of serenity. And another quote that I really love is that serenity is not freedom from the storm, but peace in the midst of it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So when we're fully centered, it doesn't matter what's going on around us. We're not going to get emotionally triggered. We're not going to go into judgment and comparison. We're going to take a deep breath and simply think to ourselves, or even say out loud, how can I help? What do I need right now to take care of myself? And then how can I help?
That's beautiful. I do hand on heart in the morning. So how are you doing? What do you need? And it's profound. Like sometimes it's like you need to chill out. Sometimes it's like you need to go for a walk. You need to go for a workout. Sometimes it's like you need to contact this person. There's going to be something there that you need to give or do. But it's the intention of checking in with ourselves that I think is so important, no matter how we do it, because we check in with the world, right? How are they doing? What do they need?
Exactly.
It's like
what's up on the news scroll?
Yes, right?
Exactly.
And we have to give it to ourselves.
And that really is the core piece of becoming and maintaining and growing in our self-awareness. Self-awareness really is checking in with ourselves. How am I doing? What am I feeling? What do I need? What's coming up for me? What's coming through me?
I love the idea of alignment, how you explained it. And for me, it's about when you're fully the most present that you can be. That's how I gauge alignment to like, oh, I'm fully present. I'm not thinking about a million other things. Like I'm here and it's like the energy. And you're right. It's about a flow. Like it's calm confidence. So I describe, when you follow your calling, usually you have a calmness, right? A knowing rather than like a frantic feeling, and maybe that's more force. That's beautiful. So Shannon, when you're helping people make significant changes in their lives, where would you start and what would you tell them?
Well, it depends upon what they're coming to me for support with.
Yes.
Usually in my private practice, I start with a stuck spot assessment. I actually have an assessment that I've created that walks through those 4 areas of stuck spots. And it's a self-paced, self-guided thing. They, complete it and get it back to me and I review it with them. When I look over their responses, it really highlights what some of the patterns are. I can see, for example, with emotional triggers, I can see, oh, these are hypnotherapy journeys that need to be done. I can tell there was something unresolved from mom that is really limiting and restricting them. Or, oh, this limiting belief, we really need to root that sucker out, or what have you. So that's really where I start with my private practice. But basically with anybody that I'm working with in whatever venue I'm working with them, it starts with where they are.
Yes, always.
It starts with where they are and what they think or feel they need. Many times they're looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Or they're not going deep enough or whatever. And unless it's that presence piece that you said, unless I'm meeting them exactly where they are, and gently leading them in the direction that they need to go, nothing is going to get accomplished because I'm just going to basically sound like an external ego. Well, you really should do this.
That's beautiful. Meet people where they are, figure out where they're stuck, what the method is for them, that really individualized approach. Shannon, where can our listeners find you if they want to do some work with you? Talk to me about your institute as well that you run.
Yes, that's probably the easiest entry point to find me is the Self-Awareness Institute website, and it's selfawarenessinstitute.com. I mentioned attending the Self-Awareness Weekend back at the beginning of my personal and professional growth journey. That program is a 2.5-day personal growth intensive that's been happening since 1983.
Wow.
And I've been facilitating it for the past, since 2008. I decided when the gal who created that program retired and basically passed the torch on to me, I had been wanting to create an institute around it for a long time. And so that's what I'm in the process of developing even deeper and stronger. So basically, the Self-Awareness Institute is a place for people to come to learn about what self-awareness is, how to get some of that stuff. I envision having greater and greater options for different programs and workshops and resources. There are a few things right now that we have going on, including the Self-Awareness Weekend, which will always be our flagship program.
Yes.
But I wanted kind of like a clearinghouse and a resource center for people to dip their toe in, get a little taste of it, and then go deeper if and when they're ready to.
I love the work you do, Shannon, and I love how you show up. You are really non-judgmental. In my hypnotherapy session with you, I asked you to do some work. So I had a serious headache. My neck was all cramped. I was like, oh my gosh, I have all this physical pain. Like, we were in intense training, and I surrendered to you and I said, just do whatever you think you could do for me, right? Like it's that instant trust with you that people feel. And I do think you see people in a different light and a different dimension. And I think you lead with an open heart and, really your calling is to do this kind of work. So you are a beautiful soul. I love our conversation today. Listeners, make sure you check out all of Shannon Lee's work. We're going to put it in the show notes as well. And remember to meet yourself where you are, right? We can't jump ahead. We have to process our feelings. We have to go figure out why we are stuck. Do we have emotional triggers? Do we have limited beliefs holding us back? Do we have ineffective strategies? And do we have underdeveloped resources? And that's a great starting point to make a change in your life. And a big significant change can come after several small shifts. So remember, you don't have to jump in and go so big, but you have to learn to trust yourself in the process, honor your inner child, and know that you can trust alignment and become more self-aware as we go through this journey of life. So Shannon, it has been an absolute honor to see you today. Thank you for serving us. Thank you for sharing your brilliance with us. And to all of our listeners, remember it's a journey, one step at a time. Tap into your courage, develop your confidence, and really understand what's holding you back. Honor your inner child and make today count. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would be so grateful if you could share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Let's remember to change our relationship to change itself and take aligned action. If we want to make meaningful changes in our lives, we need to embrace stepping into the next version of ourselves in the process. Remember, stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action today.